So anyway, thank you so much for attending this session, and thank you so much for Ellen for kind of working with me virtually so that we could kind of get this together. I am a SUNY Brockport graduate. I graduated in 2004 with my bachelor's degree in education and psychology. So like I said, I am a New York native. So I'm happy to be here with some SUNY folks and some New York, some folks as well. And then I moved down to begin my teaching career, and I got my master's degree at Florida State University. And then I moved back, as you can see here in this little map, this tiny little town called Albion is actually where I'm from. My husband and I moved back there to be with family. And last year, as you all remember, we had those frigid cold winters. So we're back here in the world's most famous beach. And I am currently a faculty development instructor for the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence here at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University worldwide. And in my position, I have the opportunity to work with faculty from all around the world, helping them kind of hone their practice and leverage some of the technological skills and tools that we have available to ensure that we are being inclusive and we are providing the best education possible that we can to our students all around the world. So today, what I'd like to talk about is diversity in the global classroom, and that is definitely a reality for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University worldwide, and it's becoming more and more of a reality in a lot of different universities as well. As we think about flexibility of online learning, where working professionals, people with families, people with community obligations can have easy access to programs that maybe aren't necessarily in their geographical area, or accessibility for those people who, maybe just are unable due to physical limitations or what have you to actually attend, regular brick and mortar courses and classes in colleges. So if we eliminate these limitations, we are seeing a greater diversity in our online classrooms. So what I'd like to do today is just explore some misconceptions about online education very briefly, outline some challenges in the diverse online classroom, and then explore some of the strategies for inclusion and engagement. And then hopefully by the time I'm done, you will have liked something that I said, and then you can take that plan and put it into action into your own classrooms or your own programs. So think about, just for 30 seconds, what inclusion means. And you can certainly tap your neighbor on your partner, your neighbor on their shoulder, and kind of chat with them. But just for about 10 more seconds, think about, what is inclusion? And inclusion really is setting up experiences so that all students can actively participate and can feel a sense of community and engagement regardless of any limiting factors, regardless of the experience that the students bring in, and it really is all about being strengths-based, and that's really what we're going to explore today. So these will probably not be new to any of you, but what are some of the misconceptions about virtual classrooms? Virtual classrooms are sometimes, or online classes are sometimes thought to be easier to teach and easier for students to take. Online learning is less interactive than a traditional classroom, and sometimes people think that only certain types of people or certain types of learning styles can be successful in online classrooms. Now, we know the opposite to be true in all of these cases. We know that teaching in an online classroom requires intentionality, and it requires the students to be actively engaged in all parts of the classroom. We also know that online learning is highly active, highly interactive, and it's a social endeavor. And so just because we are connecting with people virtually or remotely certainly should not diminish any of that interactivity. And then, of course, we want to be sure that all of our classes are accessible to everyone, and that includes learning style. So we do want to be sure that we are being intentional and planning a variety of activities that hit on each learning style. So there are some misconceptions, but there are some great opportunities that come along with this rise in online learning. Of course, the first and foremost in my mind is the diversity that is as a result of these online classrooms. I'm currently taking an online class, and I'm able to connect with people from so many different fields, but we have the same interests because we're in the same course. You can connect with people from all over the world. You can connect with people from different ways of life, different fields, and just kind of explore the depth and breadth of not only the content, but also the opportunities that are available in our world today. In online classrooms, we really focus on the real-world applications. In a lot of cases, the people who are most drawn to online learning are the working professionals, the people who have some type of experience already. And they can come into that classroom and share those experiences and really lead to a deeper real-world application for all of the students who participate. Of course, there's the flexibility to participate from your own home, not have to physically go to a location, and this can certainly appeal to people who have busy schedules, people who have physical limitations, and a variety of other people as well. So we know that there are some great opportunities provided in an online classroom, but there are definitely some challenges. We've talked about that it's really important and crucial for us to ensure that there are opportunities to forge relationships within the students themselves, but also between yourself and the students. It's important for us to identify concerns and making sure that we are providing every opportunity for success for all of our students. We also talked about earlier how online classrooms should be much more interactive and they should be a social endeavor. So one of the challenges of online learning is with the lack of social cues, if we don't have a virtual interface, how are we identifying these concerns? How are we forging these relationships? How are we establishing a sense of community within our learning environment? How are we engaging all of our students and ensuring that everyone is getting the most out of the experience? And how are we individualizing instruction? And so that's kind of what I'd like to briefly touch on today. I know we only have 45 minutes together. Now we only have about a half an hour. I do want to preface this with the fact that I am not an expert. I am a lifelong learner, and I am learning new things every day. I am just a teacher here to share some information with other educators. So this is something that I've kind of thought about, some keys to success in online learning. And I believe that they are equal parts employing some of the tools that we have available to us, such as a learning management system or apps. It would have been great if that Poll Everywhere app worked, but it didn't. And then we're also using some web conferencing here. It's also equal parts identifying barriers. So thinking about some of the biases and stereotypes that are out there in the world that could come into your classrooms in students, but also thinking about some of the biases and stereotypes that we hold. We as educators are still human, and so we still have them. We also need to think about some of the limitations of our students, limitations of our own, and also limitations of what we can and can't do in an online classroom. Really planning and being intentional is crucial. Online classrooms aren't going to look exactly like traditional brick and mortar classrooms. And on the top, I have courage and persistence. It's important always, no matter what modality we're teaching in, to have courage and be persistent. Even if you're standing up in front of a class and trying something new, it could totally crash and burn. It could totally blow up in your face. But it's important for us to try new things and have the courage to fail, and also to be persistent, to keep on it and keep trying, even if something doesn't necessarily go the way that we want it to. So the first thing I'd like to kind of talk about are identifying barriers. So in online classrooms, we have limited information sometimes. So for instance, if you had this particular individual, email you or Skype you and you see this person come up, some people may have concerns. He is an elderly gentleman. He may or may not have the technical skills. Perhaps the course that you're teaching is highly technical. You're going to use a lot of different apps, a lot of different programs, and perhaps you have concerns based on age. But we can't always judge books by cover. This particular individual actually is very tech savvy. He is actually an inventor. He is a lifelong learner, and he is truly motivated. At the age of 88, he's still a full-time researcher. So again, in online classes, we get some information, but we don't get all information. So some of the strategies that I'm going to discuss in a couple of minutes give us the opportunity to get a little more information so that we are providing the best educational experience to our students. This actually happened to me in one of my online courses when I was working with an adjunct faculty member. This person posted a profile picture as I requested them to, and it was this picture of the goat. And the first thing that I'm thinking is, okay, this is probably not professional. What would a student think if they saw this profile picture? So I'm trying to think about a way to address this with this faculty member, and I noticed that the person's name is Shay. I, in my personal life, have never come across someone who is a Shay. Is this person a male or a female? How do I address this person? In all actuality, Shay turned out to be a female. She actually was an archaeologist, and she had a goat farm. And goat farming was a hobby, and she wanted to share that with her students. She wanted to personalize her learning space. So I get that, and I certainly appreciate that. But we certainly had to talk about some of the other ways that you can, personalize the learning space. But again, when I saw this profile picture, I didn't have all the information that I needed. I thought somebody was trying to be funny, and she wasn't. She had the best intentions. So it's important for us, again, to get the most information that we can and try not to jump to conclusions. And again, as long as we are aware of our biases and our stereotypes, we can overcome them. So here are some strategies that I have found useful in my online teaching. So before your course begins, it's important, as we all know, to create a welcoming and safe environment. And this can certainly be done in face-to-face courses, but it's really crucial in an online environment. And so I prefer using my online office and actually holding office hours. In a brick and mortar situation, students have on their syllabus office hours, times that they can actually go and meet with the professor or the instructor. It's important to also set that up in a virtual environment. And you can have office hours in a variety of different ways. You could just set up times to call. You could use Skype for Business or Skype or some other Blackboard Collaborate or Adobe Connect or some other web conferencing. You could also just have a phone conversation or have an email session, but set aside times that students have your undivided attention. Some of the faculty members that I've worked with, they say office hours available 24/7. And that's not necessarily the case, and so we have to be sure that we're setting up this environment from the very beginning so that students can be successful. It's also important for us to set up opportunities for students to connect with each other, and the student lounge is a great opportunity for that. Sometimes students feel more comfortable talking to other students about maybe questions that they had, or they want to get some clarification, or they just want to network, or they just want to talk through a discussion or talk about something where the instructor really doesn't need to be involved. So if we can provide those opportunities, we should. Those opportunities are definitely available in traditional classrooms, so they should be in online as well. So if you have an opportunity, create a student lounge, a place where you don't go, but students are encouraged to. And again, you also want to personalize the classroom space. So I talked about the importance of personalizing that and creating that sense of community. So certainly put photos, but you'll want to be sure that they're professional, but certainly share your interests, share things that you may even have in common with your students. You can also personalize the space with your content. So I work with a lot of subject matter experts. They are just experts in their field, and they have this amazing experience to share. We want to be sure that they do. And then, of course, we want to set expectations. We want students to know what's expected of them so that they can succeed. So with any online course, we need to discuss netiquette, we need to discuss participation and what it is that we are looking for. And then, of course, we want to talk about what students can expect from us. If they send us a question, we should respond within 24 hours or whatever it is that we set up for them. Also, when you're planning your course, you're going to want to think about universal designs for learning. And I know that there was an additional session in this conference around universal designs for learning. So I am not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's important to ensure that we are best meeting the needs of all students, including students with special needs, including students who have different learning styles, including students who have a variety of different experiences. We want to be sure that we are providing opportunities that really work to their strengths. So universal design for learning provides multiple means for students to engage. So multiple means of representing content. So for this, in any course, students are asked to read, and there's some amount of lecture, whether that's a video that's provided in an online course, whether you're connecting with the instructor through a web conferencing such as this, there's some sort of lecture. But what are some other ways that students can get the content, that the content can be represented? And these are just a couple of other opportunities. Videos, animations, simulations, concept maps, graphic organizers, other ways that content can be shared with students. Same thing is true for action and expression. So we want students to do something. And pretty much the benchmark has been set that in every online course or every virtual learning environment there are discussions. But there are other opportunities as well. There are simulations. There can be role-playing and case study opportunities. There can also be service learning. This is a great opportunity, especially for a diverse classroom, because students from, in our particular cases, students from all over the world and all different kinds of fields can do some learning within their own community and share that and really deepen and enrichen the experience of everyone who's hearing about those experiences. And then, of course, creating films, designing exhibits, and so on. And then multiple means of engagement and learning. So the challenge for us as instructors when we're designing our learning experiences are to make sure that we are being authentic, that we are challenging, and that we are presenting things in new ways. So we can do this by adding a surprising fact or a quote, or even including some discrepancy and asking students to explore on their own. My favorite is injecting humor in stories. I know that I really enjoy learning from funny people. And then, of course, modeling and supporting. So some of the best practices for diverse classrooms really means shifting from teaching to learning. So we're really focusing on the student experience, thinking about what the student needs, and not just how I, as the instructor, can get that content into that student's brain. It's really about making it an individualized experience for them. In that, the teacher becomes more of a mentor, a coordinator, a facilitator. And we really want to challenge those higher order cognitive skills. And we can do that by scaffolding. So again, when we have these diverse classrooms, students who come in with different experiences at different levels, learning in different ways, we need to meet them where they are. And our opportunity and our job is certainly to bring them to the next level. But not all of them are going to achieve at the same rates, and they're not all going to get to the same level. So it's important for us to be aware, to individualize, and to provide the best support that we can all along the way. And my favorite saying is that fair is not the same. If you're providing the same for everybody, you're not helping. You're not doing a service to students. Fair is giving students what they need, and in many cases that's going to be something different for every single student. So some other strategies. First day of class. I like to assign video introductions. You get a lot of information, so we can avoid some of those pitfalls that we talked about earlier. We can get information about where the students are from, where do they live, what's their time zone. That's a big one here for us. What's their primary language? You also, by asking them to introduce themselves, you also have their name pronounced, and that eliminates the need to ask students how they pronounce their name. You already know it, you've already made a note of it, and you can create that sense of community. You can find out about students' occupation, and also find out what their goals are for the course so that you can best tailor the content and the experience to meet their needs. If we're asking students to create video introductions, actually, let me do this. If we're asking students to create video introductions, we should too. So students, again, can see us. They can see that we're a real person on the other side. Strictly online courses don't have face-to-face interactions generally. And so it's important to provide as much face-to-face as you can. Here at Embry-Riddle, we talk about video feedback and any way that you can just bring that personality and that face-to-face contact to the student. We already talked a little bit about the online office, but it is important for us to think about time zones if you have students working in different time zones. If you are using some sort of web conferencing, it's nice to have some sort of welcome. So although it was a failed attempt, it was my intention to have you all complete that survey and complete that poll while we were waiting. In some web conferencing, you have the availability of having music or games. If it's kind of low tech, just simply be present and start chatting with students. That way students know they're in the right spot, they've hit the right link, and they can just kind of breathe easy for a couple of minutes. It's also a great practice to provide a place for frequently asked questions or a place to address frequently asked questions. We learn a lot every single time we teach, and if you are lucky enough to teach the same course over and over again, you have a lot of information about what students struggle with, what students have done in the past. Providing exemplars in this area is a great way to scaffold students and to provide that additional support without having students have to come to you and ask. And then, of course, the learning style inventory. There are a ton of them out there. You could just provide students with a link during the first day or the first week of your online class and ask them to just do a learning style inventory, and then you could have them discuss it with their cohort or with their class. You can also break it up into a small group discussion. So those students who are more kinesthetic can kind of talk about ways that they learn. So not only are you asking students to kind of be self-reflective and think about themselves as they begin this class, but you also get all of that information and can use it to best support them throughout the course. And formative feedback. We all get those surveys at the end of the course, and sometimes they're very useful, and we can make adjustments before the next course. But what about those students who completed the survey themselves? They don't benefit from it. So if you can insert any kind of formative feedback so that students can participate in real time, and actually get some benefit from them. So ask students about their experience. Is the course going too fast? Is it going too slow? What activities have they enjoyed? Which ones haven't they enjoyed? What do they think about about the videos? Are they dated? Are they are they applicable? The benefit here is that you can make those real-time adjustments to benefit the current students in your class. And then if you are doing any kind of formative feedback, you of course have to consider, do you want it to be anonymous or do you want the surveyor to be identified? Of course, for anonymous, in many cases, students are more likely to be brutally honest, more honest. But in the case where students are identified, you can provide that individual support and ensure that each student who's asking for some particular accommodation or some particular adjustment is actually getting it. So formative feedback is important. This is another poll that we're kind of going to skip over since it doesn't work, but this would have been an opportunity for me to get some formative feedback from you. The question was, how is this session meeting your expectations? And you all could have responded, pleasantly surprised, it's meeting my expectations, or I'm hoping for more. So we've got about 12 more minutes. So let's talk about some of the tools that we can use to really ensure that we are best supporting the diversity and being inclusive in our online classrooms. So Web 2.0 tools are fantastic. Unfortunately, that poll everywhere is a Web 2.0 tool that seems to be having a problem today. But does anyone know what Web 1.0 was? And Ellen, if anybody knows,
does anybody know what Web 1.0
could you provide me with their answer?
Cricket. We've got cricket.
Okay, perfect. That's okay. Crickets are good. So Web 1.0 was the web where we went on to whatever it was back then. We went onto the internet and we just looked for information. When I was a kid, I had those Encyclopedia Britannicas, and you had like your bookshelf full of them. You could actually go online and look at the information in an Encyclopedia Britannica. However, Web 2.0 is really where we start to interact and contribute to the information that's available on the web. So Wikis are a great example of this. Although they're not the best source of information, they're definitely a source of diverse information because anybody can contribute to them. Same thing with, there's a million blogs out there or video blogs. YouTube is a great example of Web 2.0. It's an example of how we can now interact with the content that's provided to us online. So web quests, gaming, the 1,000,001 apps that are out there, polling are great examples of Web 2.0. Now, the scary thing is there's actually a Web 3.0, and that's when you are on Facebook or you are checking your email, and on that side little bar it says, oh, I've noticed that you are interested in online learning because you've clicked onto your college's site. Web 3.0 is actually taking our information and starting to anticipate what our needs may be, which is kind of convenient and scary at the same time. So something to think about. Web 2.0 tools are really, really a wonderful asset to your online course. However, there are some things that you want to consider. You want to consider the ease of use. You want them to be easy for you to use, but you also want them to be easy for your students to use. You want to consider the applicability. You want to be sure that you're not just using some kind of cool, flashy, shiny tool just for the sake of using it. It has to be, of course, applicable to the learning outcomes as well as your actual activity. And then you also need to consider your own abilities. You as the instructor need to be able to, to model it. Which I apparently failed with the poll everywhere. But anyway, think about the fact that students today are socially engaged, they're tuned in, they're powered up, they are familiar with media and apps and the internet and making all of those things work for them. The thing is that they are also in many cases young, inexperienced, and they need someone, an instructor, to model good digital citizenship, and they need teachers who are tech savvy and who are willing to nurture and guide them as we are kind of preparing these students today to be the leaders of tomorrow. The tools that we're using in our classrooms are the tools that they're probably going to use out in the field when they graduate and they get jobs. So we want to be good stewards, and we want to be sure that we're providing opportunities for them to practice in the class, but we're using the tools that are going to be applicable. And then here's an opportunity for all of you to continue with your lifelong learning. As educators, we really need to be sure that we are constantly involved in lifelong learning activities. So we are participating in mentoring and collaboration with others in our field. We are sharing our experiences and participating in professional learning communities. Now, for inclusion and diversity, no classroom is ever going to be the same. However, having these discussions and talking about strategies that either worked or didn't work are really meaningful for education professionals, because we can think about ways that maybe we could integrate something like that, or we could make some adjustment and try in our own classrooms. If we don't share our successes and our challenges, they're not useful. So we want to be sure that we're participating in these kinds of activities. So finally, in the last couple minutes, I hope that you have found something that is useful today in my presentation. Inclusion is not easy and it's not quick. It involves some intentionality, it takes some planning, and as I said earlier, it takes courage and persistence. again, some things are just not going to work. And we have to have the courage and the persistence to try it again in a different way, or completely revamp it and try again, because the success of our students is worth it. So we want to be sure that we're doing the best that we can. And I'm going to steal this quote from my 7th grade math teacher. Failure to plan is planning to fail. So what I'd like you to do, either today or tomorrow, is think about these 3 items. Think about the brain, something that maybe was shared today that you hadn't thought about before, was completely new to you, or was presented maybe in a different way. The heart should represent something that you liked, something that kind of spoke to you. And then the footsteps should be something that you might be able to implement in your own classroom. Whether it's online or not, some of these strategies can be used. So those are the resources that I've used. Are there any questions or anything that I can answer in our last couple seconds together?
Kind of staring at me. I have a question. In regards to
Sure.
faculty that you work with, now you said that you work with faculty from all over the world because you are aeronautical global. Is it global?
It's worldwide, but
worldwide, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
With faculty coming from other parts of the world, what are some of the challenges you've come across that maybe you haven't come across with faculty from the U.S.?
Well, you know, we have had faculty that just have, you know, some different ideas, some different biases and stereotypes, and some different expectations. You know, we actually have a campus in Singapore, and well, we have campuses all over the world, but one of the campuses in Singapore is very large, and so I've had the opportunity to train a number of faculty from there. And you know, there are just some faculty that have different expectations of student workload, student responsibility, and you know, we do provide our faculty with course guides, with course templates, but I have noticed particularly in our Singapore campus, that the faculty require or want to require a lot more of students, and particularly students who are native to America. You know, we kind of have these ideas about what school is. You know, oh, we're taking a 3-hour class. It's about 9 hours of work per week. You know, we kind of all have this formula in our brain, and that's not necessarily how other cultures think about school. You know, they think about it as your calling, and they think about it as you've dedicated your life to it. And so we as faculty instructors, you know, we have to kind of talk about that, you know, and talk about quantity versus quality and those sort of things.
What about, okay, so I have one more question that follows up to that a little bit.
Okay.
How, in regard to accessibility and the need for it, how do you think other countries handle it? Because there was a comment earlier today, in one of the keynote presentations, she put up a picture of a fully accessible staircase. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's the one where the stairs and the ramps, people can ascend together instead of someone in a wheelchair having to go to a separate section and just meeting the people at the top. And the staircase is actually in Belgium. And apparently, she didn't mention this, but I talked to her about this, and apparently there are no staircases like that in the U.S. And someone made a comment of, well, other countries are way ahead of us on stuff like that. What have you found with the international faculty you've worked with in regards to accessibility?
You know, I haven't really had any I don't really have any good examples for that. That would, that is something that I would be interested in kind of talking about now that you bring that up. I think that in some other cultures, there is that kind of individualization is kind of implied, and it's not that someone has to tell you to do it. It's just, this is kind of the way it is. And in the U.S. sometimes we get a little bit more litigious, and we have to sometimes be told, you have to do this because it's the law. Whereas other cultures aren't necessarily like that. It's more you do it so that they can participate. It's your responsibility. But I don't have any good examples about that.
Well, I was just wondering overall. Yeah. But see, you basically hit upon the general feeling that was mentioned by the comment that I just said to someone that I was talking to.
Right.
Any questions at all before I turn her off? Thank you so much, Angie.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
We will.
Thank you. Bye-bye.